Okay, so we're here with Nick Wozniak, a socialist and a trade unionist from Chicago, the US. We're at the anti-Nazi zone YRE summer camp in Greece, and we take this opportunity to make an interview with him. So Nick, first I'd like to ask you, since this is the main issue in the US from what we understand right now, what's the situation with the ICE raids and the Trump's immigration policy? Can you give us a picture?
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest change in the daily life of working people and in major cities. It's creating a lot of fear, and around the world, people are seeing the dramatic abuse, the dramatic changes in how the ICE police are doing detentions, doing arrests, how they're abusing people when they're doing that. And it's raising questions about the authoritarian politics of Trump and how much of a danger these new police forces are to rights across the board, rights for all Americans, and things like that. And the cases in the media, there's more different stories every day that pop up, whether through when people come in through international flights, when people go to the courthouses to get their immigration status checked off, and as they legally are required to do with the various legal statuses that people have, or in the way that people are getting stopped in the streets. And the ICE police are behaving, they look like kidnappers. They have covered faces, they wear plain clothes, they dress in black, or they drive cars that have blacked out windows or unmarked, and they break down doors, break windows, physically beat people, and things like this. And so this is a deliberate policy to terrorize immigrant communities and actually intimidate all opponents of the Trump administration. They want to make immigrants the victims of violence, to show that they're tough and that they shouldn't be messed with across the board, and that things have changed. And on one hand, that's a real change, and individuals are getting abused. I think for those that oppose these policies, we have to keep in mind the scale of the United States. There's something like 10 to 12 million undocumented people. In some cases, there's a dragnet of others getting caught up, people who have green cards in the United States, but 10 to 12 undocumented. And at the same time, right now, ICE only has thousands of officers. So, in other words, that this we shouldn't say that this is a kind of totalitarian state, or that very soon Trump is going to be able, as he talks about, to kind of round up all the immigrants and things like this. There's literally not enough ICE agents. So this policy of abuse is actually, they racially profile. It's a deliberate policy to try to terrorize the community, to try to lower immigration, and show Trump's MAGA base that he means business. But that means that also that in many parts of the country, there's a strange reality. We see these things in the news, but daily life goes on, even in immigrant communities where immigrants continue to go to work, they continue to go to school. If there's ICE reports, behaviors may change. In my city, different times, parades have been canceled, community events. We have many immigrant neighborhoods in my city of Chicago. But there's an element of life going on. Things have changed, but that should make us feel, that should let us know that there's a lot of room to fight these policies. There's the rebellion in LA, which these types of actions were specifically, there was a flooding of the ICE police into LA to try to make a statement, make an example out of people, and they were confronted. They were confronted with people actually fighting back directly when ICE agents were abusing people, and then a mass movement. And Trump brought out the military police. This was supposed to be his big thing to make us all very scared, all go home, and we should, learn that it's no point in protesting him, but the movement didn't back down. The movement was not intimidated, and it's not like that the LA protests then have changed the policy of the Trump administration, but it was a stalemate. It was Trump did not win, and there is organizing going on, the type of organizing that was in the background before the big rebellion in LA. It's happening in my city in Chicago. It's happening in every big city. There's anti-deportation networks, there's defense networks, there's communication networks that monitor ICE activity, and ICE is troubled by this. They don't like this. They're sometimes in my city they say that people in Chicago, they're too aware of their rights because there's a big education campaign going on. This is the type of organizing that Trump is going to try to escalate. Of course, he's a threat. Of course, we're not out of this at all. And he just got new funding from Congress to try to put billions and billions of dollars into this ICE police state, this detention. He's walking around with new horrible detention facilities, Alligator, Alcatraz in Florida. But when they escalate, there's going to be a response. I think LA shows that, and we should be prepared to fight because this fear campaign shouldn't hold us back. And there's a feeling in the United States now that kind of feels that power and feels that necessity, and it's different than it was maybe 6 months ago, and that's a positive thing.
Let's take a step back, and I want you to, because this is a discussion in the left worldwide, I want you to tell me if you think that the fact that Trump was elected represents a turn to the right from U.S. workers. Can you say a bit on that? What's your answer to that?
So that was definitely on election night and the days afterward. We had to think about that. That was a real fear that something new was happening. But now here we are some months on. And in short, you have to say that the answer is really no. It requires... the situation in the United States is complex. It's a very big country, and it's polarized. So although I think the results of the Trump administration, he's lost support, and the voting coalition he brought together in 2024, it's not quite holding together. It's not enthusiastic in all of its parts. But he has that hardcore MAGA bloc, and it's the biggest bloc. It's the most solid and largest single bloc in American politics, both maybe in the population, in the devotion, which is well known, the kind of cult of Trump, and even in the fact that Trump has such strong control over his Republican Party. And the concerning thing about the 2024 election is we knew this bloc would be in place for the vote, but he brought in new voters. And you could say it's two big parts. There's anger at the Democratic Party over inflation, over the genocide that was their policy in Gaza, and also there was a successful appeal by Trump, which is very concerning, of a kind of anti-woke politics, targeting immigrants as taking away from native-born, and not just native-born white Americans, but Black, Asian Americans, and Latinos. The biggest shift of people of color was Latinos, actually, which it's maybe contradictory because of the immigration issue, but this shift took place where people that have status, there's a debate in the community, a divide in the community, where Trump's demonization of immigrants, it makes people want to hold on to what they have, and a lot of these layers of people that voted for Trump, they are more middle class. There's a very large small business community. So it is more there, but it's the same appeal to workers as well. There are workers of color that see the same appeal. And the important part here is that the gains Trump is making, the key part with workers of all different backgrounds, is that the Democratic Party is more unpopular. All the issues that Trump won on, where he made a successful appeal that he can make some change, that I'm anti-establishment, that if you hate the establishment, I do too, that appealed to people, and he won on changing immigration, he won on lowering costs, and lowering inflation, he won on being the peace candidate, being anti-war, which the Democrats are seen as a war party. And all of those issues now, his polling is underwater. More people are against all of his policies, which is surprising, even on the economy and immigration, right? But the Democratic Party, both if you pull them against Trump and on all of these issues, they're more unpopular. So there's a crisis of the establishment, a crisis of the status quo. People they go to an election and they're sick of all of the options and they vote for the alternative. Trump didn't win by all that much, but he definitively won, which was really unlike 2016. So this is a serious danger that as events proceed and the crisis continues and is more turbulent, Trump could seize the initiative again and he could continue to consolidate more of a right-wing politics. We know that politics isn't going away. It's going to outlast Trump. But the question is, can we turn this search for an alternative towards the left, which has been done over the last 12 years or so with people like Bernie Sanders and now Zohran Mamdani in New York. And so I think the answer is still yes. The answer is now is the time with people already seeing my life hasn't changed. And now there's more confusion and I'm upset. People are upset about the ICE raids, the tariffs, the bombing of Iran, the Gaza genocide, which is continuing, we're reaching some of its most horrible phases as we speak. That search, we need to find an appeal on the left that can bring people over, and that is very possible. It is not the case that there's been a right-wing shift so great that the left can't make an appeal. U.S. politics right now can shift quickly. It can shift in many directions, and now is the time to kind of fight on the left for a left program, a working class program to be the opposition to MAGA, because we need to talk about actually improving people's lives by taxing the rich, by giving workers power on the job, and confront the MAGA lies, the lies about how MAGA can improve people's lives, which are, I mean, is already turning to nothing after 8 months.
On that, I mean, Trump was seen as a candidate or tried to present himself as a candidate that would turn the policies of U.S. imperialism and, the neoliberal policies of the U.S. ruling class. He gave the message that he would, change that, and he would be against the establishment, as he called them. On this issue, what's his record, these first months of government?
It's a mess. If you read the establishment newspapers and the neoliberal thinkers, the sky is falling every week. You'll hear this narrative. You can read a headline every day about the end of neoliberalism, and this is a big part of Trump's populist appeal. He's changing the system. He's overturning the elite consensus. But the situation, honestly, that has emerged as the dust has settled. Again, at the beginning of the term, he came in signing 1,000 orders about everything under the sun. But there has been a moving closer to the establishment, and many of the the neoliberal world system that, although is failing and is in crisis, is still largely in place. And that can, there's many aspects, but the billionaires, the mega multinational corporations that connect up the globe and dominate working people across the globe, these things are in place. And Trump also, the backbone or the enforcer for this system for decades has been U.S. imperialism. Trump had this idea of no wars, America first. But of course, he's moving closer to them on continuing the war in Ukraine. He's continuing the genocide in Gaza. He's bombed Iran, which is an enormous escalation. And all of these things, there's a sensibility. There's a read between the lines among the ruling class. They've had a different approach this term. He came into office and they all became very Trump fans. Trump is very, very genuinely popular among what you might say the small rich, very rich still in the United States. the millionaires, the local car dealership mega owners in the suburbs, but we're talking about the CEOs, the masters of the universe. Trump, they didn't want Trump. But then they turn around and they're the biggest fans out in public. They have nothing but praise. But behind closed doors, they're working very hard to bring him back towards their consensus. And this is a developing picture. I mean, there's issues that go beyond Trump just himself. I mean, one thing that is is maybe the biggest shakeup to the international system is the rise of China in the way that is reshaping the globalized neoliberal system and posing crises and the imperative of change all the time. But for Trump, it's very important that he not be allowed to hold on to this mantle as he's changing the system and the establishment. We need to recognize the ways things are in continuity. And recognize that with Trump, you're never going to know what's going to happen with one day or even 1 week. You know, the trade issue. This is obviously a huge change with the neoliberal status quo. The new rates that are going in place on tariffs are going to bring tariffs in the United States back up to the levels of the 1930s, seemingly, reversing the whole trade liberalization that went on in neoliberalism. But what can we say about this? This is enormously volatile and changing all the time. We have agreements for the trade deals in some countries, but there's nothing on paper. They disagree. The numbers are changing all the time. And this is what we see, is that there's Trump acts, Trump challenges the system, but in Wall Street, they're less afraid, and they have a phrase that they came up with. It's very popular in the United States now, taco. Trump always chickens out. So now you see on the markets, they were the stock markets, they were very in crisis, freaking out when Trump first announced his tariffs. But now there's zigzags all the time. Stock markets are back up to historic levels. They're not worried about the status of their system. And of course, they want changes. They want to confront China. They want to reorganize and recharge global U.S. imperialism. They think maybe Trump can make some changes they can work with. They don't see him as a decisive threat right now. And if there's damage, if there's excess, hopefully it can be rolled back later. But to the degree, we need to point this out. We need to emphasize the way that Trump is also an actor for the establishment, because it's the left. It's the left that historically has been the opponent of the rise of neoliberalism all the way, and it's we who have to articulate the alternative vision, not Trump, who is lying. Does not have. He's making changes, but this is not a coherent alternative in any sense to the neoliberal status quo, which, if you talk to an ordinary worker, things feel very similar. The direction feels very similar. There's been no decisive change.
So, last question based on all of this. What's the perspectives for the movement, the US and the left? What are the changes that we see there? And can the movement and the left confront Trump, and, with what way? Can you say a bit about that?
Well, the main thing right now we can say is that the movement is back. I mean, there's been a number of days of actions. We think we had the biggest day of protests in U.S. history in early June, potentially 5 to 6 million people on the street, and very geographically spread across the country in all kinds of communities, from big cities to small towns. Thousands, I think, of locations. And the movement has had a different shape compared to the first term, where in the first term it was right out the gate, confronting Trump, big demonstrations. This has been different. He won with a bigger vote, and he scared people. There was several months where things were very quiet, and Trump seemed to have the initiative. And as we discussed previously, with the failure of Trump's policies, he isn't showing that he is doing anything. He passed a major piece of legislation, and what's in there? It's the most grotesque, out of shape tax cut for rich people in modern U.S. history, and funding of this horrible, tyrannical immigration system to a new level. This is his main policy achievement, and this is going to do nothing for working people. So we expect that the trends you see now of Trump losing support and on the basis of being pro-rich, pro-U.S. empire, and a right-wing overreach. A right-wing overreach. Even the people that supported him, there's big sections that would say, you know, I want Trump to do something about immigration and lower immigration and things like that, but this abuse I see, I don't like it. And there's more people going to be disaffected from Trump in that way. But of course, in the United States, the crisis we have is that there's no real opposition. The Democratic Party has lost support because people have looked to it to take on Trump and been angry and outraged in the way that they're weak. This isn't to say they couldn't be electorally revived in the coming years, but the crisis, the difficulty that we on the left have is that the left currently is attached, is a wing of this horribly hated kind of part of the establishment, which people see as betrayers. You know, they see, maybe historically they have this idea the Democratic Party was for working people, which the Republican parties, they didn't have that reputation. They don't have that baggage, right? Where people say, this party, there's something wrong with it because they actually were supposed to be for working people, and they're the opposite. And I'm, you know, open to hearing why that is and looking elsewhere. And the left has had a strategy for 10 years with Bernie Sanders and the rise of the new socialist movement, the mainstream, seeing it as a necessity. And it has to be said, it has been a part of the mainstreaming of the socialist movement. And myself, as a socialist, I consider myself a revolutionary socialist. There's an imperative. There's an imperative to build working class organization, independent working class and left politics that I advocate for. But we also need to recognize that the U.S. is very weak in tradition. The U.S. has never had a mass working class party. It's been over 100 years since we've had anything even like that. And so people are coming to new ideas, and we have to walk alongside that. I've given support to Bernie Sanders in the election campaigns, and I support, and I'm very excited about the developments about Zohran Mamdani. I'm also a member of the Democratic Socialists of America and dialogue with comrades in that movement that I agree with and disagree with. And but the direction we have to take if we are to be unstuck from this cycle is we have to go out on our own and find a way to raise an independent program. Again, to confront the MAGA lies, the MAGA anti-establishment charade with a real program that is about our class taking back what has been stolen and exploited from us from the richest billionaire class in world history. And right now, there's a lot of developments that would see, you know, these Bernie Sanders, Zohran Mamdani, they're raising programmatic points, affordability, free transit, free healthcare. These are the demands that we need as a left, but they're trapped inside the Democratic Party. And as the pressure grows to confront Trump, there's the potential for a debate, a conflict, a real new set of possibilities to emerge where the left can take an independent course. But it has to be said that figures like Zohran, the mainstream and DSA, and Bernie Sanders, right now they're very committed to this path inside the Democratic Party. And the danger is that we are unable to break the cycle, that the Democratic Party can be put back in power, in part with the role of the left. They can betray, they can disappoint, and they can reopen the process for the right wing. There's no real end in sight of the crisis for working people, the crisis of the system. You know, this is a crisis for the ruling class as well. They're desperate to find a way out, and they're stuck with, you know, trying to utilize Trump to their own benefit. And it's a very it's a moment that they're very uncomfortable with. This is a moment as that we need to fight on the left. That is, there's an opportunity again to raise our ideas as a way forward in the society, but that dilemma exists. I cannot report that there's going to be any simple process. We have a very exciting development internationally, like the new Corbyn party in Labour that is announced and is exploding. I have no doubt that if Bernie Sanders were to make that announcement tomorrow, you would see a similar response, which is why it's so tragic. that we're stuck in this cycle. At the same time, it could be that international events like the Corbyn Party or elsewhere, they like the movement of the Arab Spring and the revolution in Egypt did back in 2011, they raised different ideas for the U.S. Society and working class. And so there's going to be a very contentious process. And I think as a socialist, as a revolutionary socialist, the thing to do is to move along with this, to support every fight, to support every gain, even where there's disagreements, like with Zoran. But to be very clear that there's a danger here in the position of the left if we don't strengthen, if we don't grow. We didn't talk about the union movement. If we aren't able to continue to develop the links between the union movement and the socialist left, if we don't do these things, the MAGA threat will remain. The Democratic Party will not, the Democratic establishment, the 2028 candidate, they will not put MAGA in the grave. We have to take that on as our responsibility. There will be mass mobilizations. You will see them in the U.S. There will be millions, but we face a crisis of organization that the left is a central part in raising ideas and raising answers to.
Okay, Nick. Thanks so much for this interview. Thanks for being with us, and we hope our solidarity is with you, obviously, and we hope the movement in the U.S. will make further gains in the next period.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been incredible to be here with comrades in Greece and others visiting from around the world, and we appreciate the solidarity. We do need it around the world, and we extend also our solidarity. There's a fight against the right across Europe and across the world, and a fight to dig us out of this crisis of capitalism that we continue to descend further into.